Hi, friends. So this reflections for the 15th Sunday of Ordinary Time. So as we look at the first reading of Deuteronomy, Moses tells people about, God's law, which is, you should love your neighbor as yourself. But as we look ahead to the gospel from Luke, and of course we hear the parables, Jesus, of course, he shares with them like what is written in the law. And of course, they quote it wisely, love your neighbor as yourself, blah, 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 blah. But here, this is where they try to test Jesus. And let's face it, how many times has he been tested, with this crowd? Who is my neighbor? Gilbert Keith Chesterton had a quote, to paraphrase him: our neighbors and enemies are the same people. And honestly, what we have been through the past for quite some time, there's been this polarized agenda in which, we're distancing ourselves. We are saying that it's Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, whatever it is. Authentic Catholic, Catholic in name only, Democrat, Republican, whatever. I think sometimes we forget that the first thing that comes to mind when we encounter our enemies and our neighbors is that we're part of God's children. We're all God's children, no matter what. There was a sign in Cincinnati I remember seeing once from a friend's profile page that said, love your neighbors and your enemies, God will take care of the rest. And honestly, I think it's a perfect message for today's reflection. I think we forget that we must love the person and let God take care of the sin. And in this polarized culture, we seem to forget that. Especially because I'm sure you've been to gatherings where family, put you to the test on, why are you pro-life? Why are you against gay marriage? Why did you not celebrate Pride Month? Especially if you had a cousin or a friend that didn't see you post anything, in support of the LGBT rights, which in reality, of course, you shouldn't be celebrating those things. And if you have, I suggest you repent. The same goes if you've directly or indirectly supported abortion. If you don't, I'll leave that to God on Judgment Day. But I digress. So, we look at this parable of the Good Samaritan. Priest, a Levite, see this man beaten up on the road, probably a pulp away from death. But the Samaritan sees him and shows pity and compassion for this victim of a crime. Last week, you hear about how the apostles were not welcomed at all. Of course, the Samaritans and the Jews, they had their bickering, over the years, for whatever reason. But I think sometimes we seem to forget that we have to learn to love. You hear this thing about love wins. Guess what? God wins. It's God that wins, not love. And many people seem to forget the true definition of love. Even St. Paul lays it out perfectly in this letter to the Corinthians. We too can show love today by loving our neighbors. Now, I'm not saying that love and affection kind of thing, but, just sharing, just being there for someone. I mean, I look at it this way. Metamorphically speaking, the Good Samaritan represents what we've been through, or someone that's been through so much. But, you had these people that say like, oh yeah, I do this, I do that. But they don't like they say it, but they don't put it into action. I think that's the problem today, is we look at the priest and the Levite that just didn't pay any attention to the victim that was beaten and, laying on the ground dying, off the road. Well, I think what we have to understand is that we go through so much in life that we're hoping that someone could take the time to help us. And I had a priest that said to me that, sometimes we just need to learn to slow down, be the attentive ear that someone needs, or that unexpected presence that someone needs, that friend that someone needs. Well, we do have a friend in Jesus. We could agree on that one. But really, how many times have pro-lifers went the extra mile to help a pregnant mom after she courageously said no to abortion and helped them every step of the way? And guess what? There are people that do that. So take that, mainstream media. That leads me to a story here. Years ago, I get email responses from the coordinator for the 40 Days for Life campaign. I'll leave her anonymous for the sake of charity. And she told me that, well, at the time, she was working in a pregnancy center that's across the street from a Planned Parenthood. And she shared how she encountered this woman that was coming out of Planned Parenthood, and she was white. And apparently, she went through with the procedure. And thankfully, there was a hospital around the corner, like an emergency room setting and everything. And my friend, this pro-lifer that was present outside of the abortion facility, without her, this person could have died. It was that serious. So she was on the phone with the coordinator, who's an OBGYN. And she asked her, "What do I do?" As if she described everything that, with, present, she was pale and all that. Get her to the emergency room. And that's what she did. That didn't stop. It wasn't just a one and done thing. Rather, it was just the beginning of a new friendship. And I've seen that a lot in the pro-life movement. Just in case if you need a counterpoint after what you've been hearing, all these myths and everything from the media, guess what? There are people that are willing to be there for that woman who courageously chooses life, or just shown the door from Planned Parenthood after getting an abortion. I will promise you that there are people out there that are willing to help you. They're the Good Samaritans. So friends, today, are you willing to be that listening ear? Are you willing to be that person that will help that person, get the care they need? What's holding you back from being that Good Samaritan? Throw away all that fear and cast yourself out to help that person, whether it's the homeless, whether it's the refugee, whether it's the immigrant, a pregnant woman who courageously chose life despite all the odds stacked against her. Be that Good Samaritan. And let's face it, we need more than today. Go and do likewise.